Tenant screening reports provide valuable insights into a tenant's credit history, rental history, and overall reliability. However, how are you supposed to read them? What do each of the sections actually mean? And what makes a good tenant? Now, in this video, we will walk through each of the sections of the report, highlighting what you should be looking for and ultimately how you can use this information to make informed decisions about your applicants and leads. Now, let's get started. Let's understand what a tenant screening report actually is. Now, running a tenant screening report with Landlord Studio, for instance, will give you key insights into each applicant's past behavior. You'll get a full credit history and nationwide rental and eviction history check, and a nationwide criminal background check as well. Now, this information is essential for assessing a tenant's financial reliability and compatibility with the property. Now, Landlord Studio's tenant screening report pulls data from TransUnion, one of the major credit bureaus, and we have a direct integration into them. Now, TransUnion in turn collects information from creditors, bank credit cards issuers, and public records, and it provides comprehensive and accurate and up-to-date data on each person. These reports start at $45 and can be charged to the tenant or paid by the landlord. Now, the first section on the report is the tenant's personal details. This includes the applicant's name, date of birth, social security number, verification, which is not shared with you for privacy reasons, and their current and previous addresses as well. Now, it's important to verify these personal details for accuracy to ensure you're screening the correct individual, and you'll want to cross-check these details with the details provided in their rental application, for instance. Note that their current living situation might not necessarily be a rental. They could be living with family or own their home. Now, next we have the tenant application credit score, which ranges from 300 to 850. Now, on our reports, this is called the resident score, which is a proprietary score created by TransUnion that puts more weight on rental history and rent payments, for instance. As such, there might be a slight difference between the tenant's true credit score, for instance, and their actual resident score. Factors affecting the credit score include payments, payment history, amounts owed, length of credit history, new credit, and types of credits used. You want to set fair credit score criteria and apply it equally to the applicants. For example, you might not want to rent to someone with a score below 550. In this case, all scores above that minimum requirement would qualify. Now, Tradelines refer to current and open lines of credit, such as credit cards, auto loans, and student loans. Red flags include having numerous trade lines or frequently missed payments, for instance. This could indicate a high debt-to-income ratio and the inability for them to pay their current debts, let alone future rent payments. Collections occur when someone misses payments on their trade lines, and the account is then set to collections. Common account types include utilities, medical debts, and credit cards. Now, someone with collections on their report should raise a significant red flag. This is an indicator that they either can't or don't want to pay their debts. Either way, if a tenant failed to make their payments in the past, this could pose a risk to you as a landlord. Now, credit inquiries are requests businesses to check a person's credit. There are two types: hard inquiries and soft inquiries. Hard inquiries negatively affect the credit score and are common when applying for loans or credit cards. Multiple hard inquiries in a short period of time can indicate financial distress and warrant a further investigation. Now, our tenant screening reports inquiries are soft pulls and do not impact the tenant's credit score. Public records include bankruptcy, civil judgments, and tax liens. It's important to consider the context of these records. When it comes to bankruptcy, there are two types. For instance, Chapter 7, Chapter 13. Now, Chapter 7 bankruptcy is also known as liquidation bankruptcy. It involves the sale of debtors' non-exempt assets to pay off creditors. For this kind of bankruptcy, there is no repayment plan, and this signifies that debtors doesn't currently have income to pay off their debts. As a result, it stays on the individual's credit report for 10 years from the filing date. Now, a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, often called a wage earners plan, allows individuals with regular income to develop a plan to repay all or part of their debts over 3 to 5 years. This type of bankruptcy remains on the credit report for 7 years from the filing date. Now, some landlords view Chapter 13 more favourably as it indicates an ability and commitment to paying debts and a certain level of financial stability compared to the Chapter 7, for instance. Now, civil judgments mean the applicant was sued and lost. Tax liens indicate unpaid taxes. And eviction records are crucial then to predicting the future behaviour. Eviction records are public and include details such as state and country where the eviction took place, the case type, the plaintiff, judgment, the amount, action date, name, and address. It's important to note that evictions filing doesn't always mean the tenant was forced to leave the property. There are 3 rulings you might actually see on an eviction report. Firstly, a civil new filing. This indicates that the case was either cancelled or dismissed. This can either happen for various or variety of reasons, such as the tenant paying past due rent or reaching an agreement with the landlord outside of the court. Secondly, a judgment, this means the court ruled in favour of the landlord. The tenant will have to be ordered to pay the landlord for rent owed and or any rent damage or property damage. And thirdly, the restitution of premises. This occurs when the tenant fails to appear in court or responds to the eviction summons, and means the judge has ordered the tenant to vacate the property, returning full possession to the landlord. Now, landlords should be careful when using historical evictions when making their decisions, and avoid implementing blanket policies, for instance. Instead, review each case on an individual basis. Speak to the tenant and try to get the full story before using this information to make a decision. Criminal records provide information about a tenant's past, legal issues, and it's important to differentiate between, for instance, arrests and convictions. Now, according to HUD guidelines, you should not deny an applicant based solely on an arrest without conviction. Additionally, when considering criminal records, ensure there's a legitimate connection to the tenancy risks. For example, a tenant with a history of dangerous felonies, for instance, or property damage would raise legitimate flags, unlike someone who, say, got caught driving without insurance. Lastly, AKAs, or also known as, includes other names the applicant might have used, such as maiden names or nicknames. The applicant might have debt or a criminal record or evictions under a different name, such as these AKAs. So checking the AKAs will ensure you're reviewing all relevant information about the applicant overall. Now, before we wrap up, we want to touch on some of the key legal considerations that every landlord needs to be aware of when running these tenant screening reports. First, let's talk about the Fair Housing Act. This federal law prohibits discrimination based on race, colour, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, or disability. Now, to avoid discrimination practices, you must apply the same criteria and process to everyone when screening tenants. Ensure your screening process is standardised and objective, focusing solely on the tenant's qualifications. And then next, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or FCRA, then governs you how you can use this credit reports in your tenant screening. Now, under the FCRA, you must inform tenants if you plan to use their credit report and obtain their written consent. With Landlord Studio, we get the tenant's consent as a part of the tenant screening flow. If you decide not to rent to someone based on information from their credit report, then you must provide them with an adverse action notice. This notice explains the decision and gives them information on how to obtain a copy of their report. Landlord Studio offers templates emails for this purpose, and you can visit our website for a customizable template. The link is in the description below. Now remember that state and local laws can vary significantly, so some states have additional protections and requirements for tenants, for instance, so make sure that you're familiar with all state laws in your area. If you're unsure about the specific regulations that apply to your specific rental property, then consult with a legal professional. Your tenant screening report comes with a lot of important information, but it isn't the be-all and end-all of tenant selection. Tenant screening reports shouldn't be the sole basis for your decision. You need to combine the data with other information, such as references from previous landlords and employment verification. And to use a holistic approach, you need to use a more comprehensive view of the applicant's suitability. Establish consistent criteria for tenant approval and apply them uniformly to all applicants as you interview them. And this includes minimum credit scores, acceptable income levels, and allowable past evictions. Consistency helps ensure fairness and reduces the risk of discrimination claims. When evaluating tenants, it's important to balance risk factors and make fair decisions. Consider the overall picture presented by the report and other information. For instance, a lower credit score might be mitigated by a strong employment history and a positive reference. Aim to make decisions that are both fair and protective of your investment. Now, thanks for joining us in this detailed walkthrough of how to interpret tenant screening reports. Remember, understanding and effectively using these reports is crucial for making informed and fair decisions about potential tenants. And you can easily run a free tenant screening report on any prospective tenants through the Landlord Studio product. Visit landlordstudio.com and create your free account today and get stuck in. And if you found this video helpful, give us a like. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for more valuable insights on property management and all things renting. Finally, feel free to drop any questions you might have in the comments below. And again, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.